So I want to talk a little bit about ancient Egypt, and they argument whether there were black people who kind of was the culture that transcribed that culture. And I guess from thinking about it recently, I think it's more or less like you could argue that it's definitely like sort of like a bait question or argument because I mean in definition of people who just get amped up about it, you know. But if I were to sort of think about it, I think it's mostly black people and sort of a mixture of other people, like a hybrid race. But the problem is here is what is defined as a black person, because there's some hyperbolic argument of Melanin or something like that in USA. I have no clue, but I sort of see it on the same level of South America, where it's sort of like its own population of people, and I don't really think they see it like that. You know, I mean, are you gonna call South Americans black or something? I don't know. But yeah, I just see it as some sort of hybrid race, really. But if you want to go with the definition that because most of them were dark skinned, if you really look at the depictions of the ancient Egyptians, I mean, you are kind of right there at least. But yeah, I sort of have sort of the mixed opinion of if I want to define it, I would say a hybrid race, but if you want to go more like definitive about it, I guess you can say it's like mostly black and a little bit of hybrid race. I mean, but that depends if you have a definite version or a defined version of it. In general, I just see it sort of like a hybrid thing, sort of like South America thing, really. Um, but yeah, I guess it depends what you define it as such. For example, the Nubians are at least a classical aspect at least of another culture that sometimes they helped Egyptians, but they it was more or less not part of ancient Egypt though. But yeah, that was like another depicted version of the more standardized African depictions at least. But yeah, I guess it depends how you see it really. I just think it's too much bait in this whole thing. But yeah, I sort of think you can argue for both really. I sort of see it more of a hybrid race really, and not so much a definitive one. But in terms of for example, you know, if you compare like European cultures, I mean they have a very consistent tribal type of people, so that's pretty much the same type of people, you know. And same thing with African cultures and other parts of the world. Uh, so yeah, I just see it sort of like a hybrid thing, really. I just don't see it as a definitive thing. Sort of like United States, I just don't see it as a one thing because there are different kinds of people living there. It's not like Europe or Asia or those places. Um, but if I were to sort of like argue here, because I do think there's a lot of racists online who kind of try to argue that you know, because Africa is kind of stupid because they haven't really contributed. I don't think so, because you can basically argue the same thing with Polynesians and stuff. That's not true. Because I do think warfare has a lot of aspect to inventions and overall trying to outwin the enemy, and that's why Europe, Middle East, and Asia and those places have more of a history of inventions and civilizations in such matter. So if you compare that to mainly Africa, or even Americas before Europeans invaded it, most of the time it was more tribal and not so much vast majority of huge warfare, I think. So it just depends how suitable you are to certain environments. So just to clarify that part of this. But yeah, feel free to discuss this in the comment section. This is typical of more the bait media or bait culture in general. You want to bait people in terms of a very emotional response, you know. And this is definitely some kind of hack journalism or hack people online, or in terms of outrage and such. So, but I just want to make some kind of a more of a clarified version than the previous one I made, because I do think it was a little bit one-sided video. So yeah, I hope this helped at least, and you know, feel free to think about it and try to see what works for you, and see if you agree or disagree to this one. But yeah, thank you for listening, and bye.